is on fire. Mr. Speaker, you need to direct the catering and facility services to investigate what members are eating, because he is today on fire, which is unusual of him. Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this motion. Mr. Speaker, one of the people who suffer the most in this country is a farmer. We have left the farmers at the vagaries of demand and supply without protection mechanisms that should be put in place, Mr. Speaker. Anywhere, look at the economy of Brazil. The reason the current president has been re-elected of Brazil, who defeated the Trump of South America, Bolsonaro, Mr. Speaker, the current president, is because during his time, apart from doing affordable housing, he ensured that he protected farmers and ensured that farmers get value for their crop, Mr. Speaker. Because Kenya is an agro-economy country, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, Lula da Silva, who paid a visit to this country a few years ago during Kibanda administration, has been re-elected simply because of standing with farmers, the issue of affordable housing, Mr. Speaker, and therefore we learned a lot. You travel, Mr. Speaker, I indicated earlier, to many of these countries. You will not be allowed to play with a farmer. A farmer is next to God in some of the countries because they are the people who feed a nation. They are the people who ensure Kenyans and anywhere across the world have opportunity, Mr. Speaker. This motion by Senator Mwenda Gadhaya Mofaya, the great senator of Tharaka Nithi, is timely. This is the time we are discussing about food security. Mr. Speaker, I appreciate that there are 4 million Kenyans who are suffering from hunger, Mr. Speaker. We agree counties are affected by drought and famine. But, Mr. Speaker, this is a climate change phenomenon. But it is on our own mistake of refusing to plan. When agriculture was devolved, Mr. Speaker, during the last, and we insisted like 2-3 years ago, that, Mr. Speaker, there were 11 billion that was with the National Strategic Grain Reserve. That money, Mr. Speaker, no one knows where it is. What happened with the previous CS of Agriculture? What did he do with the National Strategic Grain Reserve? Why was the National Grain Strategic Reserve, Mr. Speaker, destroyed or made non-functional is a story for another day. Mr. Speaker, I've had a misnomer and miscommunication from even leaders on the floor of the House that are alleging that farmers in North Rift or maize-growing areas are holding maize. Mr. Speaker, for your information, we are not holding maize. It is because of propaganda that they want to destroy the integrity of farmers, Mr. Speaker. And as a leader who represents farmers in this House, Mr. Speaker, we shall not allow people who eat pizza and other things like rice and everything, Mr. Speaker, to try and make propaganda against maize farmers. Mr. Speaker, this is the season that we are harvesting maize, Mr. Speaker. And then the question Kenyans should ask themselves is, including city senator, because I know they don't plant maize, but they consume a lot, is National Cereals and Produce Board is not open. Why do you want us to take our maize? National Grain Strategic Reserves is not open. Where do you want us to take our maize? Should we take to the individual members of parliament? Should we take to Mr. Speaker, to the Cabinet Secretary's office? Does the Cabinet Secretary of Trade wanted us to mop up all the maize and take it to his office so that he can know there is maize? That is a question that everybody is asking, Mr. Speaker, and we need to be honest and fair to ourselves. To move forward as a country, we must be honest. We cannot mislead the public that farmers are holding maize, yet NCPB is not open, National Strategic Grain Reserve, or the minister should have told us, NCPB is not open, Strategic Grain Reserves is not open, bring to my office. We would have lined up in his office here in Nairobi. And Mr. Speaker, the Gazette notice that allows 10 million duty-free maize, Mr. Speaker. should not be gazetted anytime. It should be rescinded or delayed up to April next year to allow our farmers to harvest, mop up the maize, Mr. Speaker, and then we sell. Mr. Speaker, in fact, what we are proposing is simple. We bought fertilizer at 7,000 shillings. We want 7,000 shillings per bag of maize. Deal done. Zero-sum game, Mr. Speaker. Because apart from buying expensive, it took their heart. We were very patriotic. We went to farming when the inputs were very expensive in the last planting season. We appreciate the government of His Excellency William Ruto, that at least the fertilizer subsidy has been reintroduced, where we'll be buying 33,500 per bag. And we hope, God willing, during the next planting season, 2023, it can even come down to 2,500. We hope the cost of fuel will come down. Mr. Speaker, I want to assure the country, if the cost of production will come down, I can assure, Mr. Speaker, we shall sell even our maize at 1,500 or 1,000 per bag, so long as the input is cheaper. Mr. Speaker, as my brother Senator Jackson Mandako said, for us who come from North Rift, it is maize, it has made us who I am. Mr. Speaker, I would not have gone to school if my parents were not farming and doing business of maize. Everything from clothes, school fees, livelihoods in the North Rift, and maize growing areas, Mr. Speaker, is because of maize. And we cannot allow, Mr. Speaker, I know there are people who want to kill maize farming. It shall not happen under our watch. Sugarcane was killed. If they reach a time where sugarcane in this country, Mr. Speaker, were being imported from Brazil and repackaged into the packets of Mumia Sugar Company, Mr. Speaker. That's how it was destroyed. Coffee is on its knees. Tea is on ICU. Mira is receiving the last singing songs called Diags in literature, Mr. Speaker. So if we don't rise and protect the interest of farming, there will be no food security. Now there is Ukraine and Russian war, Mr. Speaker. Imagine if we were depending on Ukraine to get food to this country. What would have happened? So, Mr. Speaker, we need to be honest in this country and ask our cabinet ministers, especially the CS of Trade, to stop making reckless statements that is not even beholden to any deserving leader in this republic, Mr. Speaker. And some of us are ready to teach him the leadership etiquette and mannerism on how you can do good public speaking without antagonizing our people unnecessarily, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the issue on the issue of working with counties, I agree that counties must be given a priority. The role of Ministry of Agriculture, Mr. Speaker, is only on national policy, and therefore we want to call upon county governments. I think one of my colleagues has asked, where is the county government? I have seen the statement, Mr. Speaker, by Council of Governors, led by immediate former Speaker of this House, Senator, Governor, Speaker Kenneth Magelo Lusaka, has issued a statement on behalf of the Council of Governors. We are interested to have a conversation as stakeholders. Our interest, Mr. Speaker, is not to antagonize anybody or any agency. Our interest is the farmer and the common mwananchi. And I think I want to thank Council of Governors for bringing that to the attention of the nation. We are looking forward into partnering and ensuring that we move into the future. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of feeding programs, even, Mr. Speaker, we don't want the animals from Kajiado or drought-stricken areas, the animals to be bought with 1,500 shillings per cow. We want also them to be given value. That's how you protect that farmer. Because when you go to Kajiado, Marsabit, anywhere, Turkana, their livelihood is cows, animals, and therefore, Mr. Speaker, they should be bought with good price, Mr. Speaker. Let them get value, Mr. Speaker, for those things so that we can sustain the farmer, Mr. Speaker, under guarantee minimum returns, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I agree with the government of His Excellency President William Ruto. I say that it is important to subsidize production than consumption, and we shall support the government when it comes to putting in place rules and regulations and structures, Mr. Speaker, that will ensure, Mr. Speaker, that we subsidize production in going into the future, Mr. Speaker. And I want to assure the country, if we plan better, if famine and drought strike, if we plan better, Mr. Speaker, no Kenyan should die because of hunger. No child should cook a chameleon somewhere in Nbagon in Nakuru simply because there is no food, Mr. Speaker. No Kenyan should eat, Mr. Speaker, or die because of hunger, Mr. Speaker. Under the Sustainable Development Goals, the aim that we look into the future of this country, Mr. Speaker, is to have a food sustainable nation, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I'm calling upon, and we shall support the government in making sure there are policies. And I want to thank Senator Minority Leader, my Senator retired Justice Stewart Manzayo, a ranking member of this House, for having a conversation about GMO. Mr. Speaker, the cabinet approved. The president, when we went for a meeting, the president has assured us that we shall have a conversation from all stakeholders, from parliament, from church, from public, to ensure we have a consensus on this issue of GMO products into the country, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I thank the minority leader for having that conversation. And Mr. Speaker, because of exigencies of duties yesterday, and you know, I'm a very forthright person, Mr. Speaker. Because of exigencies of duties yesterday, I was not able to be part of the conversation. But I want to assure you, Mr. Speaker, when that matter comes officially through the cabinet memo, you shall find the voice of Senator Cherargei on the matter, Mr. Speaker. Because some of us were not, where I come from, and also the voice of Senator Manzayo, where I come from is the land of Koitalel Samoe, who led the Nandi resistance against the British rule for many years, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, we were not born to be cowards. We will speak when it needs to be, and we'll support when it needs to be, Mr. Speaker. So I want to assure my colleagues who are wondering where I was yesterday that this matter will keep recurring, and my voice will be heard at an opportune time, Mr. Speaker. And we will push and ensure that the usage of GMO in this country is within the provided health and safety standards within this country. So I want to assure Senator Sifuna, I saw him tweeting, Mr. Speaker, but you know they should not be tweeting House business matters on Twitter. They should come and say it on the floor of the House. He was saying he gave me a manifesto. I don't know, I've never seen that manifesto. Maybe you put it somewhere or you imagine that you have given me. But I hope after this you can give me that manifesto, Mr. Speaker, so that we want a better Kenya. And I think that is yeah. Mr. Speaker. Yes. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I still, my Senator Professor Tom Ojenda, as my teacher, you should be learning quickly. The light is still yellow. So I told it is no problem. So, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, and I appreciate members want to contribute, I wouldn't believe, you know, this thing is passionate, Senator Sifuna, because, Mr. Speaker, I come from maize growing area. I feel at a loss when farmers is at a crossroad. That is what is making all this, Mr. Speaker. And since the light is now red, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. Senator Tom Ojenda.
Mr. Speaker, sir.